One of the things that we don't think about is how much different the first Christmas was than what people were anticipating and expecting as far as a Messiah that was coming. And I want to celebrate the fact that God is in control and God is in charge, and that means different than what I anticipate and what I think and the choices that I would make. This Thanksgiving, Joy and I will be by ourselves, and we are talking about what it's like to anticipate being by ourselves, because we have not been with our extended family at Thanksgiving since, I calculated it, since 1993, which is a long time, before some of you were even born. So it's been a long time, and I thought about the last time that we were not with our extended family. Now, that also means that when I say extended family, I had two teenagers at my house. One was 18 and one was 16. And that in and of itself was a part of the tragedy and the drama of saying that we're not going home. In fact, we lived in Michigan, and someone had offered us a place in Traverse City at a place called Big Bear Lodge. And so we decided to do that. But for teenagers that were 18 and 16 to go 3 hours, 4 hours north to maybe the most desolate part of Michigan and say we're going to spend 3 or 4 days there was not an exciting thing to them. But it was exciting to Joy and I, and we made the decision to do that. And when we went there, it was so different than what we were anticipating and what we were expecting. Now, each one of us, after we got there, got an assignment that we were going to be doing in preparation for the Thanksgiving dinner. We took board games. This was before cell phones or texting, so there was no staying in contact with the real world, so to speak. I mean, boyfriends and girlfriends and friends. There was just no texting or no phones or anything like that. So it was total isolation to our two kids. But yet there was something about it that turned out to be absolutely wonderful. We played board games, and when is the last time you played board games with teenagers? Not only did we do that, but Faith and her mother actually cooked the dinner, and Faith baked something, and then Friday afterwards, we, as a family, went to see a movie. Now, when's the last time you've been to a movie, particularly as a family? I texted John Thursday, and I said, John, without any sort of getting him ready for this question or anything, I texted him and I said, John, what was the movie that we went to see in Traverse City after Thanksgiving? And this was at 4:15 that I texted him this, in the morning now, 4:15 in the morning. And at 4:33, he texted me back. And he said, Dracula with Anthony Hopkins in it. Now, that's how he remembered that Thanksgiving and how he remembered it so well. And it turns out it was almost like one of these Hallmark holidays. You know what I'm saying? Even though we did not anticipate that, and it was different than what we thought because we couldn't drive 1,000 miles home to where the rest of our family was. The fact that it was different, and we had no way of anticipating how different it would be, was just something that was incredible for all of us as a family. And if you would ask them what was one of the most significant memories of Thanksgiving, they would say this one. Somehow the isolation, being together, being interrupted and not being able to do all of the things that you ordinarily do turned out to be a great thing. And for the next few Sundays, we're going to talk about how it is that God uses different to make our lives honestly better. Now, I know there are some people who can never adjust to different. It's just something they cannot deal with. They don't ever absorb it. They don't ever process it. It's just something that they can't do, and they're just waiting so it can get back to being like it was. And you can see where this is going right now. I think back in February when the first lockdown came relative to COVID, for the first week there, for Joy and I, it was like snow days. It was fun, kind of, as perverse as that may seem. We were just in the house, and we would watch TV, and we would eat and watch TV and eat. And we didn't feel badly because we were told to stay in, like a snow day. You don't feel bad because you're off of work because it's a snow day or a school, whatever. So we didn't feel bad about doing nothing, and because we've been told to do that, stay in, stay home, stay masked, whatever it was, and it was kind of fun for about a week. then we sort of transitioned into this other period. And I call it camping in a tent in the rain. I don't know if you've ever done that. But it was all of us, not all of a sudden, but transitioned into this period of this house got smaller and smaller and smaller. And even though we have three televisions in our house, we began to discuss sort of intensely what we were going to watch. And she would come back and say, how many documentaries can you watch in the course of a day or a week? She said, I don't think that's healthy. Well, I thought it was. I mean, I don't pick on her shows. And then all of a sudden, we back into the issue of the thermostat. And I don't know if other people disagree over the thermostat, but Joy and I can work the thermostat for a good 2 or 3 hours without any effort at all. And we got into the thermostat. And then we got into eating. We weren't eating out. And previous to that, we generally grazed one meal a day and then ate out one meal a day. And now we were forced to stay in and eat. As for the restaurants were open, remember this? And I was eating Joy's food every single day. And it just, I'm like, when are we going to eat the dog? It just got to be sort of, and then I don't know where this statement came from, but one day I said, I never realized how much like your mother you are. And she responded with, because you still need a mother. Yeah, I mean, it was this it went through a period there for several weeks that, tent camping in the rain is really, that's what it's like. I mean, we were just like getting on each other's nerves, hitting each other's car in the driveway with the door and just different kinds of things like this. And I don't know that we ever resolved the television thing. And then we went into the third phase of this. And I don't know where this came from or how it came about, but it seemed like in time we adjusted and found resolution to all of these things that were causing the tension. And this is what I'm here to report this morning. I'm not sure that this isn't the best it's ever been. There's something about not having all of these options, only having each other to depend on, being each other's company and best friend and discussing everything and spending time with each other. There's just something that does to your relationship that unexpectedly is good. It's really good. And so I say, I'm not sure this isn't the best that it's ever been. There's something about those variables that I just explained to you that probably they've always worked, except we just didn't do those things. That all came about as a result of difference. See, we're not used to being quarantined in our house 6 and 9 months at a time. That's not normal to us as people. But out of that has come a relationship that I'm not sure that we thought would ever be as it probably has been. You just kind of think, and listen, I say this, if it's ever once good, it can be like that again. And sure enough, it is. You just have to do the things that you were doing then. When I see the Christmas story, I see so many things that were the exception of what was anticipated. And as soon as we can deal with the fact that what is how it is, and embrace that, and then begin to develop strategies around the fact that it's different, that helps us. We're closer to being happy again, and we're not constantly waiting on it to get back like it once was, and that's what I want to say. When I think about Christmas, Joy and I did this, we did this week. For the last 5 to 10 years, go back and write down the gifts that you got from each other for the last 10 years. Well, I didn't do very well. I didn't do good at all. She did much better than I did. I did awful about remembering the things that she had purchased me. But what it said was, what makes an event memorable is not the gift, it's not the stuff, it's the people that experience is associated with. Think about history for a moment. Listen, there is no history apart from people. It's people that define history. It's personalities that define history. We don't remember random events apart from how they affected people. It's the same way in our lives. Listen, different is about the journey that you're making with the people that are around you and that you love. Imagine being Joseph and Mary, these kids, showing up in Bethlehem with nowhere to stay. I mean, it's not like there was the internet or telephone. I mean, it wasn't like you could bid on a room somewhere. Imagine that. And being 9 months pregnant, riding on the donkey all the way. I mean, there's just all kinds of things that could go wrong and did go wrong. At least they seem to be wrong in the moment. The first one I want to talk about this morning is this scripture. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, when Herod was king, behold, the Magi from the east came to Jerusalem. Who were the Magi? We call them wise men, or we call them king. In reality, they were Magi, and these were the same people that Daniel hung out with maybe 1,000 years before, or 500-600 years before. These are the same people that Daniel was hanging out with, because it said they came from that same area, and they predicted the future by looking at the stars and by events that were happening relative to the world around us. Now, we don't think that's a good way to predict the future or even rely on those people or anything like that. And yet these are the people that God sends to announce the coming or the arrival of the Messiah. Did he not know? It was different. See, it was different than what they anticipated, or how I would have done the story. Way different than that. This guy, Herod, just to give you a little background on Herod and in studying him. Herod, first of all, was a Moabite turned Jew. Now, as a political appointment or as a leader, you see, to have changed from one religion to another religion just so that you could get a political appointment, those people that you're ruling are not ever really going to trust you, nor did they. They didn't. And we know there's great animosity towards Herod. In fact, Herod lived up to his reputation, not just having killed infants and babies. Herod killed his brother-in-law, his mother-in-law, and eventually his wife. I mean, those were all notches on Herod's sort of gun or knife or whatever, as far as people that he had knocked off along the way. So the fact that he killed young babies, that was nothing to him. He was truly a bizarre character in history. And this is what it says. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all of Jerusalem with him. And when he gathered the chief priests and the scribes and the people together and made inquiry as to where the Christ was to be born, they said, in Bethlehem, in the land of Judea. This place that was insignificant. Listen, I've been to Bethlehem, and it's virtually a non-event other than the fact that there is the church there that sits over the top of where they say that Jesus was born. Other than that, there's not much there even yet. And this is what they're telling him. He's going to be born here. And then these guys show up, the Magi, and say, where is he that is born the King of the Jews? And they say that to the guy that has that job right then. Well, he didn't like that. But he doesn't say that to him. He says, you go and find him, and when you find him, come back and tell me so that I may go and worship him as well. Now, here's what you do with these kind of situations. What I am and who I become has so much to do with what is thrown at me. The best of me or the worst of me comes out when things happen that I was not anticipating. When I didn't anticipate something, when I didn't see something coming, when there was no way that I thought this was a possibility, this is when the absolute worst and the absolute best can come out in me and in you as well. In King Herod, it was the worst the worst, honestly, historical behavior that we find, apart from Adolf Hitler, maybe in the Holocaust. It's right there with that. Herod. And then here are the wise men. And their response is to take Jesus' personal wealth and give it to him and worship him and not go back and tell Herod, risking in the process their own life. So what we see is awful behavior and absolutely some of the best behavior that's ever been anywhere in history. We can do the same thing. Now, had I had the opportunity as to vote on whether or not we were going to have COVID, I would have voted no. Just so you know. I would have said, no, I don't think this is a good year for COVID. It's not a good year. Maybe some other time, but I'm not going to vote for COVID. I was not given that choice. No one asked me what I thought of it. And yet, here it is. Here it is. It's in my life, it's in your life. Now, how I choose to respond to this can be the best of me or it can be the worst of me. I can see it as an opportunity for a life-changing event. I can see it as a place in time where God transformed me, the people around me, and everything in my life because of how I chose to deal with this. That's the Magi. That's the Magi. Or I can be Herod. I can be a monster. I can be a monster. I can see all of these conspiracies, all of these what could be, what might be, and as if for some reason you had the power to say, I didn't vote for this, I didn't choose this, and yet here it is. So what are you going to do with it? I'm going to choose to take this opportunity to bring God, His knowledge, His place, and His purpose for this situation into my life. That's what I'm going to do. And I don't know how that is always. I don't know how that's going to work. There are several things that I am anticipating. I'm not sure if there's any comfort in this, that what we think of as public education and secondary education will ever be the same. I'm not sure. Don't let that scare you. See it as an opportunity. Listen to this. Let's move on in on me. I'm not sure that church as we know it will ever be consumer Christianity driven like it has been, honestly, for the last 75 or 80 years. I'm not sure that when it returns, I'm not sure that it will ever go back to that. Maybe that was what God intended. Maybe. You see, what becomes of us is going to be decided by us in the circumstances that maybe we had no control over. There's this one, there are future ones, and this is what I know in my own life. Out of some of the most unlikely circumstances have come some of the greatest joys of my life. Out of some of the most unanticipated deals that have happened to me have come great things. 3 weeks ago, I had open heart surgery. And you feel vulnerable, you feel, obviously it's not what I didn't vote for that, and yet here it is. But I remember this. The morning that I was to have the surgery, you show up at 5 o'clock, and then it's just like you go through this training, and you start through this process of you do this, and this, and then your family comes in, and they get 15 minutes with you, and they say to my wife, you can go down to the staging area with him. Well, now, like anybody else, I'm apprehensive, I'm nervous, this isn't what I do every day. And so any little thing has huge meaning. And we're rolling down, I'm lying on the gurney there, and Joy's holding my hand, sort of patting me, and you get on the elevator, and then you ride down to, seem like forever, down. The door's going to open in hell or where, And And then they push us off, and then we go in the staging area, and a nurse immediately comes and says to my wife, you're going to have to leave now. Well, they said she could stay, but it didn't seem like the appropriate time to push back to me. So Joy left, and I was sad. I was kind of afraid. Listen, I felt alone. And then something said to me, you're not alone. You're not alone. And I said to myself, no, I am not alone. And immediately I started talking to God. I am not alone. I don't know how all of this ends. I don't know where all of this goes. But you're going to make every step of this journey with me. And he did. I don't know how COVID ends. I don't. I didn't vote for it, wouldn't have voted for it. But you know what? I'm going to do my best, with God's help, to make the best out of me. And I'm not going to do it alone.